Welcome back, Rebels, to another year of University Speaks. I'm Maria Dibut.
And I'm Anthony Ramos. Thank you for joining us after what seemed like the longest break. How was your break?
My break was amazing. I went to San Francisco with my mom, and then I got to go to Texas to see one of my closest friends. So I got to live a little of the California lifestyle and a little of the Texas lifestyle, so it was great.
Enjoy, got a little bit of stuff outside of Vegas. That's always nice.
How about you?
Mine was very unproductive. I did absolutely nothing, and I couldn't be more proud.
That's okay.
I'm so satisfied.
That's okay. That's the best.
Right?
Doing nothing.
That's exactly what I needed to.
Yes. Now we would like to take a few moments in today's show to commemorate one of UNLV's longtime administrators and professors who unfortunately passed away last month, Professor John Unruh. Mia Nakamura has more.
Unruh passed away on January 14th, 2022. John died after a long illness at his home, alongside Darlene, his wife of 61 years, and his daughter Jane. John was a professor of English at UNLV from 1970 to 2014, where he served as the chair of the English department, dean of the College of Arts and Letters, and senior vice president and provost. During his time at UNLV, John was a building block for growing the school into an important research institution. He established the College of Fine Arts, Engineering, and Integrated Health Sciences. He also established the new schools of communication and architecture. John did not stop there. He also established the UNLV Office of Research and UNLV's first PhD program. John was known for his honesty, loyalty, kindness, and generosity, who dedicated his life to serving the students at UNLV.
I think it's fair to say that UNLV wouldn't be what it is today without people like Professor Unruh. Graveside services will be held in California in lieu of flowers. Donations can be made in his memory at the UNLV Lead Library.
As we step into another year of the pandemic, contagious COVID variants like Omicron are causing COVID spikes across the nation. UNLV has been taking preventative measures such as ensuring rapid tests are ready available to the public. Our reporter Maya Goodwin has the story.
Within the last school year, there has been an overwhelming rush for students to submit proof of COVID-19 vaccination. But on December 22nd, the NSHE board reversed the mandate. I talked to Dr. Brian Labus and a couple of UNLV students to get their thoughts.
Well, the best way to stop COVID transmission in a large group is having a high level of immunity. In order to do that, we had to have everybody vaccinated, and we weren't getting there just by asking people to do it. So the mandate had to go in place to improve our vaccination rates.
Mm-hmm. And then
the initial mandate was put in through a Board of Health requirement that was a temporary regulation, and that lasted for 120 days. So it was never meant to be a permanent change in Nevada law. The opportunity for the legislature to extend that was what happened at the end of December, and they decided not to. However, the State Board of Health can still go back and make it a permanent thing now through a different process. Right now, there actually wouldn't be a difference. So the mandate required people to get vaccinated in order to enroll for classes in the fall. And that mandate didn't go away until the very end of the year when basically everybody was already enrolled. So when that mandate went away, it didn't reduce the percent of people vaccinated on campus. It'll have a bigger impact for next fall when students are enrolling for the fall semester. But for right now, it really doesn't make much of a difference because the mandate did its job of getting people vaccinated.
I think we should have kept the mandate because I don't feel as safe going to my classes just because it's just spreading the virus more than necessary, and if people were vaccinated we could get back to normal like sooner. So
in a way, I don't know, I don't really mind it too much, but I do see it as it can be a problem for certain people, you know.
it is highly encouraged to practice good hygiene and take all precautions during these times. This has been Maya Goodwin with University Speaks.
For more information about how to stay safe when COVID variants arise is public health expert Dr. Christina Madison. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Super well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course.
I'm very excited to join you and to have this very important conversation.
Yes. So let's get right into it. And I want to ask you, what are the current recommendations regarding COVID-19 vaccinations?
Yeah, so right now it is recommended for all individuals age 5 years and up to get vaccinated, and then anyone who is 12 years and older that's received one of the messenger RNA vaccines should be boosted once they receive that primary 2-dose series at least 5 months after receiving the second dose. And then if they receive the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, if they were 18 years and up, they can get a booster dose, preferably of one of the messenger RNA vaccines, such as Moderna or Pfizer, at least 2 months after they received that first dose of the Johnson & Johnson or the Janssen vaccine.
Of course, and I know people always ask about the booster. How important do you think the booster is to us to everything else?
So the booster dose is extremely important, which is why the CDC and the FDA actually reduced the age of when booster doses are recommended. And then even beyond that, age 5 to 11-year-olds, if they're immunocompromised, meaning that their immune system is weak, we're recommending for them to get a booster dose as well, because we know that the protection that you get from the booster is so much better, especially with this new Omicron variant.
Yes.
And so it's super important to make sure that you're getting boosted because we know that that particular variant of the virus does something that we call, it's called immune evading, which basically means that it can outsmart your own immune system, either from natural infection with the COVID-19 disease or through vaccination. So super important that we do that, because that means if you do become infected, you're much less likely to experience severe illness, hospitalization, or death.
Of course. And I mean, I was going to ask you about the new variant, and you kind of mentioned on it, but should we be concerned about it?
So it is what we call highly transmissible. So it is literally one of the most infectious viruses that we have seen, even since measles, which is the other most contagious viruses that we have a vaccine to prevent. And so literally you could be in the same room with somebody and be across the room from them, but if the ventilation in that space is not good, or it can stay in the air. So yeah, so you could even just be in the same space, or even pass through a space where somebody has coughed or sneezed, and those respiratory droplets can stay in the air, and if you breathe them in, it can infect your nose.
So you don't even have to be close to the person, you can get it through the environment of the room.
Yeah, that's why we recommend those multi-layered mitigation measures. So not just wearing a mask, a high quality, well-fitted mask, not just being vaccinated, and not just being 6 feet apart. It's good ventilation. It's making sure that you limit your time around people that may have unknown vaccination status.
So basically, always watch your surroundings when you're out, basically, because it could be anywhere. And you mentioned being protected. So what kind of mask is the best one to use against it?
Yeah, so a website that you can go to, which is really great, that can tell you whether or not it's the proper mask, and then ultimately that it's not a forgery or a counterfeit mask, because we're seeing a lot of that now, is the N95 project. So if you go to that website, it's called the N95 project. It has a whole list of all of the different high quality masks that you can purchase, and it is a nonprofit, so you can go there and look and get great advice. So there's a few different versions. So there's the KN95, and then there's an N95, and then there's a slightly different version of the KN95 that is kind of it looks like a duckbill mask. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yes, I have.
So those ones are very protective as well. So the difference between a KN95 and an N95 is the size of particles that they filter. So the N95 respirator is the top of the line. That's the highest quality, and that one's going to have straps that go around your head and the back of your your neck. That one is going to have the tightest, most secure fit. And then the KN95, those are going to have the ear loops. And so that's how you know the difference. And then ultimately for small children, there is no version of an N95 mask for them. So what you can do for them is you can double mask with the surgical masks that are children's size.
Yes.
So that's what I do for my own kids because I have a 3 and a 5-year-old.
The safer, the better.
Yes.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, and when we were talking prior to going on air, we were talking about the transition of like the pandemic into our new normal. How can we learn to live with the variant and the COVID and move on, like kind of process and start like our lives, basically?
So one thing I will say is that because Omicron is so highly infectious, we're probably going to get to a point in the very near future that we're going to get to a herd immunity, right? So the majority of the population will have either had the infection or have been vaccinated against COVID-19. And so once we get to that point, it'll be much easier. Plus the warmer weather, there's lots of things to look forward to and look positively for. And I think once we get there, we're going to move from a pandemic space to an endemic space. So we're more akin to like seasonal influenza. So it's something maybe that we ramp up for during certain times of the year. We get vaccinated, we wear a mask, we, limit our space inside indoor.
Staying safe.
Yeah. We just it's an ebb and flow. It's like a dance. Like we're dancing.
Accommodating,
yes,
of course.
we're dancing with the virus.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't have to dance too much with the virus, and sometimes
It
we have to
gets a little
dance a little
harder.
bit
Yes,
more.
of
So
course.
we will be able to live well, and we
Yes.
will be able to live with this virus. It's just going to take all of us working together.
Well, Dr. Christina, thank you so much for joining us today and for giving us so much helpful information. And it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Hopefully I'll get a chance to come back.
Of course.
You've been
Thank
lovely.
you. Now back to Anthony at the desk.
All right, Maria, thank you so much for that. Staying on the subject of COVID, if you've been going to the grocery store lately, you may have noticed aisles looking a bit thin. I spoke to a local grocery store director who gave me a little insight into how COVID is affecting food inventory, making the demand for product a challenge. On your last trip to the grocery store, what did you notice? If it's empty shelves and holes throughout the aisles, you've hit the mark.
I would say it fluctuates. We have some good weeks, but we also have some really bad weeks where, it looks like Swiss cheese when you're walking down an aisle.
Nearly 2 years after the start of the pandemic, grocery chains are now faced with even more problems. Inventory becoming increasingly challenging for stores to get a hold of.
It's definitely across the board. Produce, not so much, as until recently we've started seeing some shortages. Meat, that's a continuous thing. There's a real fall in chicken right now.
With the lack of available products comes an increase in pricing, the pandemic being the root of the cause.
COVID-19 has created a lot of economic complications, including rapid price increases across the world economy. People see it at the gas pumps, the grocery stores, and elsewhere.
In addition to a spike in prices, an ongoing national labor shortage, companies struggling to transport freight as truck drivers are down 80,000, according to the American Truckers Association. As the Omicron variant surges, many locals here in the Valley are choosing to work from home, others leaving their jobs entirely.
As associates come to work, a lot of them do catch COVID. They go out for, the mandatory required time that the CDC states, and then they come back. I've had associates not come back.
Leaving managers like Corey in a bind as inventory fluctuates, demand and customer foot traffic increases. And back here on campus, I reached out to the dining commons to find out if they had a hard time getting their hands on inventory for the meals they prep for students on campus. And they tell me that inventory so far has yet to be impacted, but they are keeping an eye out for any changes that may come.
It's good that here at UNLV we haven't seen any major changes, but I've definitely seen the impact on it on local small businesses, especially local restaurants.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very sad to see. It's difficult.
Yeah, I actually reached out to a restaurant thinking, because they're small, locally owned and everything else, but they were completely closed. They had been closed since December.
It's heartbreaking.
Since December.
And they count on it, and I'm pretty sure they loved it, and it was like their business, and they had to close it.
Some people's
it's really
way of
heartbreaking,
life.
and I wish just things get better so people can start getting their business back on track and everything. It's it's better.
Hopefully, after we heard from the interview, we got some positive,
Yes,
stuff on the way.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly, there's hope.
Yes. We wouldn't be able to attend any UNLV sports games without these guidelines in place. Let's see what students can expect for the upcoming spring season with our reporters Dominic and Sydney.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome to the Rebel Roundup, where you can get the top stories in the UNLV sports world in one place. I'm Dominic Lavoie, and this is Sydney Lum. Sydney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. That's good to hear. So let's get started. To kick things off, UNLV baseball and softball released their 2022 season schedules over the winter break. Softball opens their season against the BYU Cougars in the Rebel kickoff at Eller Media Stadium, while baseball opens their season at home on February 18th against Michigan State. The baseball team will also play in a makeup game March 29th against the Arizona State Sun Devils at the Las Vegas ballpark following the cancellation of said game last season.
Moving on to football, the Rebels announced a record-breaking early signing class, as well as former Bishop Gorman quarterback Tate Martell retiring to focus on his upcoming business venture. And now moving on to basketball. The UNLV Runnin' Rebels finished their non-conference play in December, going 8-5 overall. Their conference play began in January and will continue until March. Tickets for baseball, softball, and men and women's basketball can be found at unlvtickets.com.
To round things off, the UNLV Skating Rebels have been on quite the run this season. They have also announced the addition of 3 NCAA Division I games to their schedule for the 2023 season. Let's take a look at how they made it an unforgettable season so far. Bolstered by rookies and hungry players, the UNLV Skating Rebels have been a force to reckon with in the college hockey world this season. Led by head coach Anthony Vigneri-Greener and captained by senior Jared Erickson, the team found themselves first in the preseason coaches poll for the Western Collegiate Hockey League. The Rebels then started their season out 4-0, having swept the Illinois Fighting Illini and Utah Utes in their first 2 weekends of competition. UNLV then hit a rough patch shortly thereafter, losing 3 in a row at the hands of the University of Central Oklahoma Broncos and the University of Arizona Wildcats. Those 3 losses will be the only ones to date. The Rebels won out the fall semester, highlighted by wins against top teams in the nation en route to an ACHA Chicago Classic tournament championship. Once the spring semester kicked off, UNLV got right back to business. UNLV extended their win streak to 16 games after sweeping the University of Jamestown and the University of Arizona and remained 4th in the national rankings.
I don't think our confidence ever wavers. I think we preach in the locker room to play with a swagger, play with a moxie. That's what the coaches preach. When you step on the ice, know that you're going to win. But part of being one of the best teams in the country is putting away those below you. But our confidence never wavers. I've said before in prior interviews this season, we think we're the best team in the country, and we think every time we step on the ice, it doesn't matter who's on the other end of the ice, we should beat them.
Obviously, Chicago was huge for our program. We faced 3 top 5 teams, in my opinion, and we came out of there with the win of the Chicago Classic, so we were definitely pretty hyped up about that. But we're just kind of getting used to playing with that target on our back. We just have to make sure that we're running the league from the top to the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's Minot or Liberty or GCU or ASU. We got to make sure that we're ready to go.
The Skating Rebels have 2 home series remaining, where they face Grand Canyon University February 18th and 19th and end their home campaign March 4th and 5th against the University of Oregon. One thing you won't want to miss about February 18th's game against Grand Canyon University is the second ever Greek night. UNLV students get in free at the door with the showing of their Rebel card, as well as free admission to a tailgate with free food and drinks. Now let's go back to Maria at the desk.
Congratulations to our UNLV hockey team, and I can't wait to see what they do the rest of the season. From sports to a legal matter, law is a very difficult and male-dominated field. Here's how UNLV and Voice School of Law are helping women in law succeed. UNLV Voice School of Law has created the Organization of Women Law Students, OWLS, to provide women law students with all the resources they need to succeed during their law school journey and in the professional field.
I think OWLS is really important because we have mentorship programs with female attorneys, and the speakers that come, they inspire women to not only get their law degree, but to become practicing attorneys.
A supportive faculty can make or break the success of students, and for Voice Law students, their faculty are their biggest support.
I also chose to come here because the faculty and the students were incredibly kind and supportive. It was a much less competitive environment than other law schools, and it was about support and education and becoming an attorney rather than competing.
For Gabriela, practicing law in Nevada after she graduates and encouraging her peers as well is very important for the future of practicing women attorneys.
I recently found out that women in Nevada are only a third of the bar, but they're 50% of Boyd graduates. So we're losing the line. We're getting law degrees, but we're not actually becoming lawyers. So one of our goals with OWLS is to pair people up with an attorney mentor so they can see themselves practicing law, being in a courtroom, just as much as our male counterparts.
It's truly inspiring seeing women striving to make a difference on important fields. We wish the ladies of OWLS all the best of luck on their future in law. Taking a look at another organizations on campus is Greek Life. Let's toss it over to Lina Ataou for more.
Despite the COVID surge, campus life is coming back. On January 26th, UNLV held its biannual Involvement Fair, where students learned about organizations here at UNLV. I spoke with Pan-Hellenic and Multicultural Greek Council sorority presidents at Involvement Fair and learned more about their plans with the new COVID surge.
The spring 2022 semester seems to be back in person, and with an in-person semester comes joining clubs and organizations on campus. Greek life is a big part of the UNLV campus community, so I spoke with Epsilon Alpha Sigma president Nadia Herman to learn more about how their chapter is dealing with the spike in COVID.
So, obviously, according to the news, there's been a large surge in COVID cases. Fortunately, we haven't had any issues within our sorority, but when we are indoors, we always make sure to have masks on, or if we're standing really close together, we'll have masks on. And we just make sure that everybody knows that there won't be any penalty for missing meetings if they stay home because they don't feel well.
UNLV recommends to stay home if you're feeling sick with COVID-19, to notify your instructors, and complete the online reporting form. This helps deploy support and resources to the individual from the Student Health Center.
So basically, we've been trying to get a bunch of our sisters accommodations, especially for those who are more concerned about COVID and stuff. So we have virtual options like meetings, we have virtual activities that they can do, and just a bunch of sisterhood stuff in general.
Right now, students are not required to have the COVID-19 vaccine, and masks are still required indoors. Pan-Hellenic and Multicultural Greek Council sororities are holding recruitment this semester, so if you're interested, reach out to the respective councils. And stay safe, Rebels.
I also spoke with Joey Custy, president of Pi Kappa Alpha, about how they're adjusting to COVID. He said that Pike is trying to follow FSL and UNLV's policies as best as they can, such as providing masks and having safer food policies. Make sure to check out all the amazing organizations we have on campus and stay safe to ensure a full in-person semester. Back to you, Anthony.
And back here on campus, UNLV is keeping theater alive amidst the pandemic with classic plays like Antigone. Our reporter Caitlin Bustamante has more.
Second Stage is a theater organization entirely run by UNLV's undergraduate students. I had the pleasure of speaking with Axel Knight and Nico Lemus of UNLV's Second Stage's production of Antigone to see how they're keeping theater alive during these trying times.
Just kind of about this girl who is trying to mourn the loss of both of her brothers.
At its core, what's the most important is that it's an incredible drama of family, of hope, of fate.
For this cast and creative team, returning to the stage has been a magical experience. Here's what they have to say.
Before the pandemic, my last experience with theater was in high school, where I didn't really get these kinds of roles.
Actors get hungry when they're not working. You know, they get this enthusiasm, that this desperation to tell these stories and to continue acting. And when you withhold that for 2 years, they come onto the stage with this energy and this life.
Director Axel Knight has completely rewritten the play, creating his own dystopian science fiction adaptation of the Greek classic.
And I think that this is a story that really needs to be told in a modern and in an updated way.
It's a very powerful show, and it's very relevant because it's extremely important to have these conversations about what is unity, what is power, how are we keeping each other from progressing. And I think that keeping theater alive in a world and in a situation like this it's just extremely important.
If you're interested in seeing the show, Antigone will be hitting the stage February 24th through the 27th in UNLV's Paul Harris Theater. Follow at UNLV Second Stage on Instagram for more. Reporting for University Speaks, I'm Caitlin Bustamante.
Honestly, Anthony, I am so excited to have plays back in person. I'm taking a theater class this semester and I get to go watch it, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, having plays back is something that it's amazing for not only the actors in the plays, but for the audience as well.
Audience,
especially like everything that we've been dealing with for the past couple of years. It's nice.
And it's nice to go and see everybody. UNLV, it's
definitely
nice.
just having fun, acting, enjoying it, watching
Exactly.
it. That's all we can ask for right now.
Yeah. And that's all the time we have for our Welcome Back show. Be sure to follow our socials to stay up to date with news around our campus. I'm Maria Dibut.
And I'm Anthony Ramos. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.